welcome back. It's Woman Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. The Dow is doing significantly better than yesterday as we speak. Dow is up 290, but Bitcoin in the alternative is taking it on the chin today, down $750. And all this stuff going on in a very tumultuous end of summer. The global economy seems to be shrinking, if not imploding. The Italian government is crumbling. And here in the U.S., where many of the macro indicators say that the markets and the economy are doing well, left-wing media continues to try to egg on a recession, whether it's true or false. And we bring on the people who bring you nothing but the truths. The president is out there bashing the Fed chair again. And when the Fed is involved, we go to our Fed expert, Danielle DiMartino Booth, joins us again. She's the author of the book Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad. You've been critical of the Federal Reserve, of course, and you were an insider with the Federal Reserve. But I know on this show, me and you have talked about it before, you're not necessarily in favor of the president smashing the Fed chair about policy, are you?
No, I'm really not. I think it's counterproductive, and we do need an independent Fed, and that was what I argued for in the book, and the president trying to strong arm and very publicly bully the Fed, I think it's going to end up working against him in the end. He's relying too much, I think, on Jay Powell and his powers to try and keep this economic expansion going.
So let's take a look at what the president tweeted about the Federal Reserve just this morning. This seems like an almost daily series of tweets having to do with the Federal Reserve. But the president tweeted about Jerome Powell and the Fed being essentially responsible, so you guys could put that up if you have it, for all of the country's problems. Is he trying to make the Fed a scapegoat, you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is exactly where he's going with this. There are definitely signs coming from the heartland that manufacturing's in a recession. We've seen 7 straight months of industrial production coming in, and we're seeing other signs that, we had a decent existing home sales report this morning, but this is the first time that year over year we've seen sales up. What with mortgage rates down 1% or so, we should be getting a lot more traction from lower interest rates, and I think that's the message the president needs to understand. Sometimes you can try and administer the wrong medicine to the patient and end up with a backfire.
So today and this week, we're hearing other good news. New housing starts are up. Consumer confidence levels are up.
Consumer confidence took a dive on Friday.
Well, but the growth was less than expected,
yes,
but it was still growing slower than expected. I don't know if something, as long as I still hear growth, I feel like that's a good thing. But
the stock market's still growing.
Yeah, and these global fears, Danielle, as somebody who worked for the Fed, you see these all the European banks now are basically, paying negative interest rates, and
right,
that's got to have some contagion.
It's crazy, and actually that's one of the reasons why I wish the president would stop tweeting about the fact that Germany priced a 30-year bond today at negative 0.11%. That's not a good sign it's not a good reflection of the health of the German economy. It's actually the opposite. I understand that the German government does a lot better because it obviously doesn't have to pay any interest if interest rates are negative. But again, it's a reflection of a very weak economy, and that's not something we want on our shores.
Yeah, no, Go ahead, Frank.
No, I was just saying the president is assuring us that there won't be an economic recession, but he's taking any number of steps in order to prohibit a recession from ever happening. One of those apparently has to do with a plan he floated yesterday that he believes he might be able to do on his own, and that has to do with indexing capital gains taxes for inflation. Give us your take on that as a concept, and if you think that would help in the current situation.
Well, it would certainly be beneficial to investors who are sitting on capital gains, and that would be yet another thing to keep this stock market rally that's over 10 years old going. I think his idea for payroll taxes is a little bit more, that would go a little bit more to his base and help out the people who are, you know,
well, that he would need Congress for, I guess, right?
He would definitely, yes, he would definitely need Congress to push their payroll tax cut.
There's certainly a little bit of a political bent in that one, because it's going to be really hard going into 2020 for Democrats in Congress to be sitting there saying we're not for a payroll tax cut.
It is definitely optically damning for the Democrats to go in that direction. On the other hand, as you pointed out, the liberal media is chomping at the bit for the United States to fall into a recession before the elections next November. So I think that they would do whatever they could to spin it to their benefit.
I think we have a video of the president talking about his desire for a payroll tax cut yesterday. This was the president speaking yesterday. Although we may not. But
we thought it was there.
Exactly. But it's going to be.
Well, what the president basically said yesterday was you put it all in the blender: payroll tax cut, capital gains tax cut, the Fed lowering interest rates by 1 full percentage point. What's not to like? We could see this economy take off. I'm just not sure, because the latest consumer sentiment report out of the University of Michigan, households have actually started saying, hey, this trade war stuff, this tariff stuff is starting to bother us. JP Morgan came out with a report that said that the average American family would end up paying $1,000 a year more because of these. And there are certain things I think that the president could do that related to the trade war that would alleviate household finances more than trying to push through an act of Congress.
Yeah, I've talked about this on the show before, that, you know, I understand as a free market capitalist, I don't really want to see these nationalist tariff things. But when JP Morgan comes out and breaks it down, that it's $1,000 a family of 4, it's $250 a person, it's like 70 cents a day over the course of a year.
It's not much, but it would be the difference between, you know, going to Wendy's or Applebee's. If you're, I mean, you would slightly alter your household budget, and it would take a consumption would take a hit, and we don't want that in a consumption-driven economy when 66%, 65% of the economy is what we consume.
Is there a difference between Wendy's and Applebee's in price? Is there?
That's no. Applebee's is actually lowering prices as quick as they can.
I think they're about the same. I went to Wendy's in a rest stop the other day with me and my son. Got a couple of Happy Meals, and it was like $27. I was like, well, where are we?
True enough. I drove back from Florida, and Wendy's was definitely a big ticket item.
No doubt.
Danielle, do you see? So you talk about the situation with the Federal Reserve. You talk about you look at the debt bubble, both private sector debt and government debt.
$22.5 trillion we're approaching very quickly.
72% of economists have indicated that they see a recession coming sometime soon. Do you see any reason to be optimistic at this point economically?
Well, so many of the things that we're seeing lead me to be concerned that the manufacturing sector is bleeding into the manufacturing recession is beginning to bleed into transportation. That bothers me. I mean, trucking, activity at our nation's ports, air freight. These were things that were making the economy roar in late 2017, 2018. You don't want to see, again, in a nation of consumers, freight declining for 8 consecutive months, and the main arbiter of the freight data in the country saying we see recession coming. And nobody wants this. I mean, people do not. You can be a cheerleader for a recession, but that's wrong-minded. You don't want to see that at all. You want to see this economy continue to expand. But again, we're seeing signs. We've got initial jobless claims are up year over year last week for the first time. And in the manufacturing states, it's even worse. These are not the things we want to see.
I know the president's running into some problems with the coal miners of late, but you know, I think the macros on the economy is still good. I would love to see a payroll tax, and I would love to see the president lay off the Fed chairman. I want to thank Danielle DiMartino Booth for joining us and giving us all the insights we need when it comes to the Fed and the economy. She's a thought leader. Thank you for joining us, as you always do. And do you play golf?
I don't play golf, but I love to watch it. It's very calming.
I loved it when the president said Jay Powell's like a golfer who's a bad putter. No touch.
Yeah, he's the caddy screaming in his ear, trying to say, don't miss.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Excellent analogy. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back right after this. We're going to mix it up with Laura Fink and Tisha Powell. You're watching Liquid Lunch. We're back in 2.